The school hall buzzed with laughter, shoes clicking against the tiled floor as students hurried to their next classes. But amidst the noise, a sharp whisper spread like wildfire. "Did you hear? Olivia was seen talking to that scholarship boy again." Olivia's name carried weight. She was the daughter of Chief George, the wealthiest man in town. Everything about her screamed privilege, from her neatly ironed uniform to the sleek car that dropped her off at school every morning. But today, all eyes were on her for a different reason. She stood by the library entrance, speaking in hushed tones with Daniel, the boy no one expected her to befriend. Daniel's books were his only luxury. His uniform always a little faded, but his brilliance outshined every student in school. Olivia didn't seem to care about the whispers or the disapproving glances. "Why do you always sit alone?" Olivia asked, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Daniel adjusted his glasses, avoiding her gaze. "It's easier that way. People don't expect much from someone like me." Olivia's brow furrowed. "Someone like you? You mean the smartest student in the whole school?" Daniel let out a small chuckle. "Smart doesn't change the fact that I don't belong in your world." That was the beginning. A friendship that no one understood. A connection that stirred unease. Olivia had everything, yet she found herself drawn to Daniel, the boy who walked to school under the scorching sun, whose shoes were worn but whose mind was sharper than a blade. The friendship didn't go unnoticed. Naomi, Olivia's best friend, wasted no time confronting her. "Why are you lowering yourself to talk to him? People will start thinking you like him." Olivia only smiled. "Maybe I do." That one sentence sent shockwaves through the entire school. The days that followed were filled with stolen conversations, shared laughter, and quiet moments by the library window. But while Olivia saw friendship, admiration, maybe even something more, others saw a disaster waiting to happen. Chief George's driver, always punctual, reported back everything he saw. Olivia spending too much time in the library. Olivia walking slower as if waiting for someone. Olivia laughing a little too much when Daniel was around. By the time Olivia got home, her father was already waiting. "Sit down," he commanded, his voice calm but firm. She obeyed, heart pounding. "Is something wrong, Papa?" Chief George didn't waste time. "I heard you've been spending time with a boy. A scholarship student." Olivia's fingers tightened around the hem of her skirt. "His name is Daniel." Her father leaned forward. "I don't care what his name is. Tell me, Olivia, what do you want with a boy like that?" A lump formed in her throat. "He's my friend." Chief George let out a dry laugh. "Friend? You and I both know that's not possible. Olivia, people like us don't mix with people like him. It's just the way things are." Olivia had never felt so small in her own home. "But Papa, he's not like." "Enough," his voice echoed. "Stay away from him." That night, Olivia lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. For the first time, she felt trapped in a life she hadn't chosen. The next day at school, Daniel noticed her silence. "Something's wrong." She forced a smile. "Nothing's wrong." But Daniel saw it in her eyes. The hesitation, the sadness. He knew their friendship was now a battle she would have to fight alone. And just like that, the whispers grew louder. The distance between them widened. But something had already begun, something no one, not even Chief George, could stop.
The air in the school was thick with rumours. Olivia had not spoken to Daniel in days, and people noticed. The usual stolen glances in the hallway were gone, the quiet library conversations had disappeared, and Olivia seemed more distant than ever. Daniel knew why. He had seen it in her eyes that day, the weight of her father's warning pressing against her. But he also knew Olivia. She wasn't someone who gave up easily. So when he found her sitting alone behind the science block during lunch, he didn't hesitate. "Are you avoiding me?" She looked up, startled. "Daniel," he sat beside her, setting his books down. "I know your father spoke to you." She sighed, hugging her knees. "He doesn't want me near you." Daniel chuckled lightly, though there was no humour in it. "Figures." She turned to him, frustration flickering in her eyes. "It's not fair." "No, it's not," he agreed, "but it's the way things are." Silence stretched between them. Olivia stared at the dry grass beneath her shoes, feeling the weight of expectations she had never asked for. "Is this it then?" Daniel asked quietly. She hesitated, then shook her head. "No?" Daniel raised an eyebrow. "No?" She took a deep breath. "I don't care what my father says. He thinks I'll listen, that I'll fall in line just because he said so. But She paused, choosing her words carefully. I like spending time with you, Daniel, and I'm not going to stop. Daniel's chest tightened. He hadn't expected that. You know this won't be easy, he said. Olivia smiled, determination lighting up her face. When has anything worth having ever been easy? That was the moment everything changed. They started meeting in secret, long walks after school, study sessions in the abandoned music room, whispered conversations behind the library shelves. It was thrilling, exciting, a secret world of their own, but secrets never stayed hidden for long. Naomi, Olivia's best friend, was the first to notice. "You're playing a dangerous game," she warned. Olivia only shrugged. "Let me play." But Naomi wasn't the only one watching. Chief George's driver had seen Olivia walking home slower than usual, Daniel always a few steps behind. The security guard at school noticed her sneaking out during free periods. And before long, the news reached her father's ears once again. This time, Chief George didn't just call Olivia in for a talk, he acted. 2 days later, when Olivia arrived at school, she was met with an announcement. Daniel had been suspended. She stormed into the principal's office, her hands shaking. "Why?" The principal adjusted his glasses. "There have been reports of inappropriate behavior. Your father raised concerns, and after reviewing—" "Inappropriate?" Olivia's voice was sharp. "What did he do?" The principal sighed. "It's not just about him, Olivia. It's about you. Your father believes this friendship is distracting you." Olivia felt her stomach drop. "This is about my father's money, isn't it?" The principal didn't answer. He didn't have to. Fuming, Olivia ran out of the office. She found Daniel outside the school gates, his backpack slung over one shoulder. "They didn't even give me a warning," he said. "Just told me to leave." Her eyes burned with tears. "I'm so sorry." He smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. "It's not your fault." "But it is," she whispered. "This is happening because of me." Daniel shook his head. "No, Olivia, it's happening because your father doesn't want you to make your own choices." Her heart pounded. "What are you going to do?" "I'll find another school," he said. "I always knew this one wouldn't keep me forever." She grabbed his arm. "Number, this isn't how it ends." He looked at her, and for the first time, doubt flickered in his eyes. "Olivia, maybe this is a sign—" "No," she said firmly. "I'm not giving up on us." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Then we fight." And just like that, they made a silent promise. This wasn't over. Olivia felt trapped. Her father had made it clear. Daniel was not welcome in her life, but instead of pushing her away, it only made her want to hold on tighter. Daniel, on the other hand, had disappeared from school. He wasn't allowed back, and no one knew where he had gone. Days turned into weeks, and Olivia found herself staring at the empty seat where he used to sit in class, hoping for a miracle. Then, one afternoon, it happened. She had just stepped out of school when a familiar voice called her name. "Olivia!" Her heart jumped. She turned and saw Daniel standing near the school gate, dressed in a different uniform. "You got into another school?" she asked, rushing toward him. He nodded. "Yeah, not as fancy as this one, but it's close by." Relief flooded her. "I thought I'd never see you again." Daniel smiled. "I told you, this isn't over." Their meetings became more secretive. Olivia started making excuses to leave the house, sneaking out to see him whenever she could. They met in quiet places, the back streets, an old bookstore, even the abandoned playground near Daniel's new school. But secrets, no matter how carefully kept, always found their way to the surface. One evening, Olivia came home later than usual. She had been with Daniel, lost in conversation, time slipping away too quickly. As soon as she stepped into the house, she knew something was wrong. Chief George was waiting for her in the living room. His face was unreadable, but Olivia could feel the tension in the air. "Where were you?" he asked, his voice calm but sharp. She hesitated. "With Naomi." His gaze didn't waver. "Don't lie to me, Olivia." Her stomach twisted. I was just with Daniel. The words hung in the air like a storm about to break. Olivia swallowed hard. How did you... You think I don't know where my daughter goes? His voice was eerily controlled. You think I wouldn't find out? Olivia's hands clenched into fists. You had me followed? Chief George stood up. I will not watch you ruin your future over a boy who has nothing to offer you. He's not nothing, Olivia shot back. He's brilliant, he's kind, and He's poor, her father interrupted, and that's all that matters. Tears burned in her eyes. You don't even know him. And I don't need to, he said. You are my daughter. You will not embarrass this family over a childish infatuation. Olivia felt her heart crack. It's not childish. Her father's expression darkened. It ends now. She had heard those words before. The last time he had gotten Daniel expelled. This time she knew he would go even further. That night she made a decision. The next afternoon she slipped a note into Naomi's hand. Give this to Daniel. Naomi hesitated. Olivia, maybe... Please, Olivia whispered. That evening, Daniel found Olivia waiting near the bookstore. She turned to him, her expression unreadable. I need to ask you something. Daniel nodded. Anything. Her hands trembled. If I leave, if I run away from all of this, will you come with me? Daniel's eyes widened. Olivia, I can't stay here, she said quickly. Not like this. My father won't stop. He'll keep controlling my life until there's nothing left of me. Daniel hesitated. Running away isn't that simple. I don't care, Olivia said. I just need to know if you'd do it. If I left, would you? Silence. Then, finally, Daniel exhaled. Yes. That was all she needed to hear. Olivia lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling. She had made up her mind. She was leaving. But the weight of it pressed down on her chest. Was she really ready to walk away from everything she had ever known? Her father would never forgive her. Her mother, though silent in all of this, would be heartbroken. But what choice did she have? The next afternoon, she met Daniel behind the old bookstore. Are you sure about this? He asked, searching her face. She nodded. I've never been more sure. Daniel exhaled. We need a plan. They had no money, no place to go. Daniel's school barely covered his fees, and Olivia had never worked a day in her life. Reality hit them hard, but neither backed down. Maybe we should go to your uncle's place, Olivia suggested. Daniel shook his head. He barely has enough for himself. We need something else. Days passed, and their plans slowly formed. Olivia started saving bits of money from her allowance, hiding it in an old novel on her shelf. Daniel searched for job openings in nearby towns, hoping to find something they could survive on. Everything was set. Then, just 2 days before they were supposed to leave, Olivia's world collapsed. She got home to find her suitcase packed. Her father stood by the door, arms crossed. You think I wouldn't notice? Her blood ran cold. You're leaving tomorrow, he said firmly. You're going abroad for your studies. Olivia's heart pounded. What? Her mother stepped forward, eyes filled with silent sorrow. It's for the best, Olivia. No, she shouted. You can't just send me away. Chief George's expression didn't change. You have no choice. That night, Olivia cried harder than she ever had. Daniel waited for her call, but it never came. The next morning, she was gone.
Daniel stood outside the bookstore waiting. He had been waiting for hours. Olivia was never late, never. His phone remained silent. No messages, no missed calls, just an uneasy feeling growing in his chest. Then Naomi arrived, her face pale. She's gone, she whispered. Daniel felt the ground shift beneath him. What do you mean, gone? Naomi hesitated, her eyes filled with pity. Her father sent her abroad. She left this morning. For the first time in his life, Daniel felt powerless. Olivia was gone. Days turned into weeks. Daniel tried to focus on school, but nothing felt the same. He kept thinking about their plans, about the life they had almost run away to start. But in the end, she had been taken from him. He blamed himself. He should have acted faster. He should have done more. But regret changed nothing. One evening, as he sat outside his house, his uncle walked up to him. "You've been quiet lately," he said. Daniel forced a smile. "Just thinking." His uncle sat beside him. "About the girl?" Daniel exhaled. "She's gone." His uncle nodded slowly. "Then maybe it's time to move on." Daniel clenched his fists. "I can't." His uncle studied him for a moment. Then he pulled out an envelope and placed it in Daniel's hands. Daniel frowned. "What's this?" "A scholarship letter," his uncle said. "You applied months ago, remember?" Daniel's heart raced. He had applied to several programs, hoping for a way out of his situation. He tore open the letter, eyes scanning the words. Congratulations. He had been accepted. He was leaving. On the other side of the world, Olivia sat by a window, staring at the city skyline. Everything felt different, colder, emptier. She had begged her mother to let her stay, but nothing had worked. Her father had won, or so she thought. One evening, as she scrolled through her phone, she saw something that made her heart stop. Daniel had gotten a scholarship, and he was coming to the same country she was in. Her fingers trembled as she typed a message. Daniel. She hesitated. Would he still want to hear from her? She hit send, then she waited. Then, Daniel stared at his phone. Olivia. Her name flashed on the screen, the message sitting there, waiting. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. It had been months since she left. Months of silence, of unanswered questions. And now, just like that, she was back. His fingers hovered over the screen. Then slowly, he typed, "Olivia?" Seconds felt like hours before her reply came. "Daniel, I just found out. You're here." He exhaled. "Yeah, got a scholarship." Another pause. Then, "Can we meet?" His heart pounded. He wanted to say yes, but part of him hesitated. She had left. She had been taken away, yes, but she hadn't reached out, until now. After a long moment, he typed back, "Where?" The cafe was small and quiet, tucked away in a corner of the city. Daniel arrived first, his hands restless against the table. Then, the door opened. Olivia stepped in. For a moment, neither of them moved. She looked different, her hair shorter, her eyes tired. But when their eyes met, it was as if nothing had changed. She walked over, sitting across from him. "Hi," Daniel swallowed. "Hi." Silence. Then Olivia took a deep breath. "I'm sorry." Daniel leaned back. "For what?" "For everything," she whispered. "For not calling, for not fighting harder, for leaving you behind." He exhaled. "It wasn't your fault." She shook her head. "But I still left." Daniel looked down at his hands. "I waited for you, Olivia." Her breath caught. "I know." More silence. Then she reached across the table, fingers brushing against his. "Tell me we haven't lost everything." Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, then looked at her. "I don't know," he admitted. And for the first time, Olivia felt real fear. Olivia's heart pounded. Daniel's words hung in the air. "I don't know." She had expected anger, maybe even resentment. But this uncertainty, it scared her more than anything. "Daniel," she whispered, her fingers still resting on his hand. He pulled away. "Olivia, a lot has changed." She swallowed hard. "But do we even know who we are anymore?" His voice was quiet but firm. "Months passed. You were gone. I tried to move on, to forget. And now you're back, expecting us to pick up where we left off." Her through the net the through grow. Torida mi you are now. "I'm not expecting anything. I just want to know if there's still something between us." Daniel leaned forward, rubbing his temples. "Olivia, I loved you. Loved, past tense." It felt like a slap. She bit her lip. "So that's it? Just like that?" He sighed. I don't know what you want me to say. Say that you missed me, she pleaded. Say that you still think about us. Daniel met her eyes, and for a moment something flickered there, something familiar, something real. I do, he admitted. Hope sparked in her chest. Then... But that doesn't mean we can just go back, he interrupted. We're in a different world now, Olivia. You live a life I don't belong to. I fought hard to be here, to get a chance at something real. I can't afford to chase something that might not work. Tears burned her eyes. And what if it does work? He hesitated. And that hesitation was all she needed. You still love me, she whispered. Daniel exhaled. Maybe I do. Silence. Then, Olivia reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She slid it across the table. What's this? He asked. She swallowed. I turned down my father's offer to return home after school. His eyes widened. You what? She nodded. I'm staying. Here. Daniel stared at the paper, then at her. Why? She took a shaky breath. Because I want to write my own story. Another silence. Then, for the first time in a long time, Daniel smiled. A real smile. And Olivia knew they still had a chance.